Okay, another story today. This is one of two stories following the theme of Keith in hospital. That's me. And these stories come from about 1997, 98. I might be able to find it out to remember the exact year, but anyway. Right, the two happened in the same year. And up to that time in my life, I'd not been in hospital much, not had anything, no real accidents or anything until I started working with the horses. Now this first one involved a dog. The dog was called Todd, and he'd come to us from a rescue centre on the Humber Bank. That's south of the River Humber, North Lincolnshire, Killingholme area. We'd been to Grimsby to a presentation by Birdseye, organised by John, one of our volunteers, who'd managed to get us a bit of funding from Birdseye somehow or other. And while we were there, we met this lady who has something to do with this animal sanctuary. Well, it's a dog sanctuary at Killingholme, and she'd been told that we were quite used to Dalmatian dogs, and we trained them, to work with horses and carriages. So she said, well, we've got this dog which has been with us ages, and it's a difficult animal, and it's getting more difficult because every time it goes out to somebody they can't cope with it and it comes back. Would you think about coming to have a look and see whether you could cope with it? It's called Todd. It's a lovely it's not a black Dalmatian, it's the other colour. And so off we went to find Todd at Killingholme. Now, to continue with the story about Todd, the liver-spotted Dalmatian, we eventually got to Killingholme and found the dog, and the lady who had brought him out of his kennel immediately pinned her up the wall. He's a good-natured sort of dog, but just very exuberant. Anyway, we brought him home and he settled in with us, and obviously he was very pleased to have a home, a permanent home where he could, live a good life. And he helped us with the horses, and he was with us all the time. In fact, he latched onto me a lot, and he always wanted to be with me, and that's how the accident happened. One morning, Trina and I mucking out the heavy horses. We had about 15 heavies to muck out every day. They didn't all live in individual stables. They lived in a big building, and they were divided up with poles and scaffold poles and gates and things. And so mucking out was fairly easy. They were on rubber mats, so it was a matter of mucking out and then hosing down, and it still took quite a long time, and it was very hard work. And during this time, this particular morning, it had been a bit of a grim day. It was late springs. Yeah, oh yes, it was. Oh, yes, it was June. Yeah, and it had been wet, and the yard was all wet and filthy and muddy and everything. And we'd got a mobile phone. Well, it's a portable phone, not the mobile phone as you have nowadays. It was a phone which had a base station, and we propped it on a gate, and anyway it was ringing. So I ran off to answer the phone, and Todd ran with me, got under my feet, and I did a complete somersault in the middle of the yard. I flew in the air quite spectacularly actually, and landed on my shoulder. Right shoulder. I rolled quite well with it. Anyway, when I got up, couldn't work my arm. It wasn't dislocated. It just wouldn't work properly. So I thought, oh dear, there's a problem here. And my immediate thought was to do something like that chap on those films, Mel Gibson. Yeah, all he does is slam his shoulder into a telegraph pole or something, and it all comes right again, And we've got telegraph poles all over the place holding the building up, and I thought, well, dare I risk it? And I thought, better not. I don't know what's wrong with it. So I decided I'd better go to hospital, because I was no good as it was. The arm was useless, and so I told Trina, to carry on as best she could, and I was off to hospital. So I said I'd go to Skeg because it was nearer, Skegness. Although it hadn't got all the major facilities, it wasn't too far away, about 10 miles. And we got this lovely Subaru pickup. So I've squeezed myself into the Subaru, wound the window down with my left hand, shut the door, and rested my elbow on the window, half in, half out, and that was very comfortable, resting the elbow on there. I drove off to hospital. Remember, I'd been mucking out horses. I got mucky boots on, not wellies. I got sort of heavy boots on, like hiking boot things, and thick socks, and I was wearing shorts, and I'd been rolling in the muddy yard. I'd done a somersault and rolled across the yard, so I was covered in mud, head to foot, and my face, legs, everything. So I drove into the hospital car park at Skeggy and parked up and found my way to the reception. I said I needed some help because my arm wouldn't work properly. So the girl, she gave me a bit of a look, and I was actually lobbed on her counter because I wasn't feeling very good by this time. So I was half lobbed on her counter, and anyway, someone came away and put me sort of on a trolley thing and wheeled me into one of these cubicles. Anyway, a doctor came along. Well, it didn't take long, actually. I wasn't waiting for hours or anything. I was a matter of a couple of minutes, and the doctor came along and said, yeah, right, we better have an X-ray for a start. So I got transferred onto a bed, and then they put the cot sides up on this bed, and the porter came along and was going to wheel me off to the X-ray department. It's only down a long corridor at Skeggy. It wasn't very far out of the outpatients. So there's a lot of other people about, sort of waiting for this, that and the other. So I thought, I don't know, I gave them a bit of a wave as I was going past, in my bed with the cot sides, laid down with my arm sort of half hanging out at one side. And I got to the X-ray department, and they sort of got me off this bed and onto some sort of table to try and take these pictures. Well, I couldn't lift this arm up very high. I still can't, actually. So I couldn't lift it very high, and they wanted to get a picture sort of inside, underneath and everything, see what was going on there, and round the back and everything. Anyway, after a bit, came back and went into my cubicle, and the doctor came to see me and said, oh, they aren't any good. He said, you've got to get it up, get it up higher. And I said, oh, it hurts. He says, yeah. He says, it does, I know. He says, that's why we gave you a needle in your bum, he said, it's a painkiller, so that it doesn't hurt too much. But he says, you need to get it up higher. And, yeah, all right, so I gave it another go. And I went off down to the X-ray department again, doing in my bed with the cot sides up. I don't know why I got a bed with cot sides up. I could have done very well in a wheelchair. It was probably to support my arm, you see, because they didn't know what was wrong with it. Anyway, it was getting on towards lunchtime when I came back, and he said, oh dear, these aren't very good. Look, but the X-ray department's gone off to lunch now. And I could hear them whispering in the background something about sending him to Pilgrim, which is the big general hospital at Boston, where they have all, super facilities and everything, but long waiting lists. And I didn't like Pilgrim. My wife worked there, well, had been working there in the operating theatres, and I was in favour of small hospitals. I'm a small hospital man, to be honest, not a big, enormous, great place where things disappear. So I was thinking, oh dear. So they were going to make a decision after lunch. They're going to take one more set of pictures after lunch, see if they get it. I thought, right. Anyway, I'd got no cot sides up then, and at the side I got sort of, I got my pillow somehow, and I rested it on the side of the bed. I think I maybe got a cot side halfway up or something on the side, and I rested this pillow there, and I lifted I thought I'll jiggle my shoulder about a bit, see what I can do with it, and suddenly it was a bit of a click, and it felt a lot more comfortable. So I left it there, and it doesn't look very good, does it? But it was a lot more comfortable than it had been, and there was no pain. So, all right. So lunchtime was over, and I got wheeled off again. I think this time they did let me go in a wheelchair. And the doctor said, you know, they're frightened of you at the X-ray department. I said, well, I don't know why that is. I mean, apart from the fact that I'm covered in mud and I've got this problem with my arm, which is stuck out at the side, and my legs are muddy and my shoes are muddy, but I'm quite happy, and I'm not a terrorist or anything. Anyway, they was a bit concerned about getting me do what they wanted. So anyway, I had this third go, and by that time, you see, I'd got the elbow higher, and it was, it wasn't uncomfortable. So they got some pictures and went back, and the doctor said, oh, he says, yeah, that's better. He said, I can see you've broken your shoulder. He said, oh, he said, you've done this before, haven't you? I said, well, oh, God, I can only remember having an accident on a tricycle when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I crashed into a tree, and I ended up in hospital then. Oh no, it's more recent than that. I said, well, anyway, he said, look, he said, I can't see that we can do a lot more for you, because it doesn't, it'll have to mend itself. There's not much we can do about this, except just take it easy. You should wear a sling, all right? You should wear a sling, and you shouldn't be doing any manual work for, quite a while to give this chance to mend. So I thought, all right, at least I'm not going to Pilgrim. Anyway, thank goodness for that. Anyway, they let me out, and of course, being in England and everything, they don't give you any records or anything. They don't give you pictures, or you haven't got any memento of being there or anything like that. All your details go down on some sort of slate, and that's it. Anyway, okay, so I crawled. Well, I was walking. I wasn't in any pain then, but my arm. They put it in a sling. That's it. Put it in a sling. So I went out and to the truck. And the window still wound down, so I climbed in, shut the door, put my elbow on the door, the door again with the window down, and drove home. Anyway, when I got home, Trina says, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be here. She said, Ruth rang up and she said she's rung the hospital and told them to ring her as soon as I'm fit to come home, and she'll come and collect you. So you haven't got to drive. Ooh, I thought, a bit late for that, isn't it? And they didn't say anything in the hospital. Maybe that's because the doctor said they were frightened of me. Anyway, she'd rung and told them who she was. She was the local district nurse at Spilsby at this time. And anyway, the message hadn't got through to me. Maybe I'd crept out without... I didn't sort of, disappear without anybody knowing. The doctor said I could go, so... Once he said I could go, I went, and I disappeared pretty quick. So I'd got home, arm in a sling, and Ruth wasn't very happy that I'd driven home. But anyway, no problem. My arm, as the day went on, the arm began to work, reasonably well. I'm a great believer in if things will work, keep them working, even if it's a little bit. Don't overdo it. Don't be stupid, but keep them going. And I'm also a big fan of ibuprofen, and at the hospital they did give me some 600 ibuprofen. Now you can only get 600s on prescription. I get 200s or 400s here at the pharmacy if I have an accident in the garden or something like that. But when we used to get trodden on a lot at the horse centre, then ibuprofen was a fairly common thing to try and cope with the pain of being trodden on by a big horse. So there we are. So I'd got home, and arm was supposed to be in a sling, and it didn't feel too bad, and I'd got another arm. Anyway, by that time Trina had finished mucking out. But I can't remember a lot more about that particular incident. The dog was pleased to see me, but this is quickly followed up by another incident. I know I was using the arm. I was using a sling, and the sling was, I must admit, the sling was very useful, but I took the arm out of the sling so I could carry on with some sort of work during the mornings, and then life carried on. So there we are. That was the first incident. That's how tripped over a dog, and the doctor said they were frightened of me in Skinner's Hospital. Well, when I came home, I wasn't much cleaner. I mean, they didn't give me a wash. They didn't clean me up in outpatients or anything like that. I was still, covered in mud and all head to foot, even when I got home. My clothes were a right mess. So that's probably the reason why they thought I was a bit, fierce looking. But I'm not really. So I hope you like that story. That's Tripped Over the Dog, or you can see this. You can read the story on Buzzsprout site. It's actually in It's a Rum Life Book 4, Volume 1. You can download that as a book on our website. They're all free to download. So lots of choices if you want to look at this story in another form. Find the website and download what you think. Have a look. Have a good look. There's lots of stories on Buzzsprout. They're just audio stories, and then there's the actual book you can read, and this is one of the chapters. Lots of pictures too. Now, finally, if you like what we're doing, can you give us a like? And even better, subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel to grow. And then YouTube, if you ding that bell, YouTube will let you know when we release another story or whatever we're doing at the time. So thanks for being with us today, and until the next time, cheerio.